Hello, I'm Kate from Medway Libraries, bringing you another virtual story time while the libraries are closed, and also in celebration of Empathy Day, which is on the 9th of June. Empathy is being able to imagine and share someone else's feelings. And Penguin, the book publishers, have very kindly given me permission to read a chapter from one of their wonderful books. And the book I'd love to read to you today is called A Charlie Changes into a Chicken. And it's written by Sam Copeland and illustrated by Sarah Horne. And I'm going to read to you chapter 1. This is Charles McGuffin. It isn't actually him. It's just a picture of him, of course. Charles McGuffin is absolutely nothing like you or me. He is totally, completely different. Charles is unique because Charles can transform into animals like Danger Noodles. Now, Charlie was a pretty normal boy until about 3 weeks after his 9th birthday. He'd just come back from visiting his older brother, Smooth Move, at the hospital for the zillionth time. Smooth Move was quite ill and had been in hospital for ages and ages. This was really annoying because Charlie was convinced he could now beat his brother at FIFA on the PS4 and wanted to prove it. Also, the den in the garden needed mending and Charlie couldn't do it by himself. And sometimes Charlie just wanted his brother back. So he had someone to play hide and seek with. Playing hide and seek by yourself isn't much fun. Charlie had tried. If you're very clever, you might have guessed that Charlie's brother isn't actually called Smooth Move. But woe betide you if you were to call him anything else. Charlie's brother's actual name was Henry. But after a lifetime of being called Horrid Henry, he would punch anybody right on the nose if they called him by his real name. He was 12 years old, sick of hospital, and could still easily beat Charlie at FIFA, no matter what Charlie said. And he might have a girlfriend, but he would punch you on the nose if you said, Smooth Move has a girlfriend. And there's Henry there, sitting up in his hospital bed. In fact, you do well to come away from any conversation with Charlie's brother without getting punched on the nose for one reason or another. As soon as Charlie and his mum and dad got home from visiting Smooth Move, Charlie ran upstairs to his bedroom. He dived into his bed under his duvet and tried not to think about the big scan that his brother had been telling him about. After a while, he wiped his eyes and propped the duvet up with a tennis racket to turn his bed into a tent. Once the tent was steady and stopped collapsing, he switched on his torch and began reading his favourite book. Charlie's favourite book was all about volcanoes. It had pictures of massive explosions and orangey red lava, and he liked to imagine that he was escaping certain death by sliding down the volcano, surfing the lava and dodging the explosions. The sound of his parents arguing upstairs rumbled through the house, low like thunder. Charlie closed his book. He couldn't concentrate. Darkness had fallen outside, and the street light outside Charlie's window was making uncanny shadows on his bedroom wall. The silhouettes of the tree branches looked a little too much like long, clutching witches' fingers for Charlie's liking. So quick as a flash, he sprang out of bed and pulled his curtains together. It was there and then that it first happened. It began with a twitching in his eye. Charlie froze to the spot, feeling his eyelid blink manically. His eye had twitched before, but that would have been when he'd been tired. But this felt different somehow. It felt like somebody had just plugged him into a wall socket. The twitching spread to his other eye, and both eyes were now blinking and twitching. A feeling burst through the whole of his body, like he'd just been shot through an electrical wire. Like he was electricity. Every part of his body fizzed and hummed. The fizzing and humming became stronger until he felt he was on fire. But a fire inside a never-ending tube, squeezed and vibrating, and his skin felt extraordinary, alive. He looked at his arm with some considerable alarm and saw that hair was sprouting out of every part of his skin. Look, everybody, can you see his arm there? All the hair all sprouting out, lots and lots of hair. Weirdly, the room was growing larger too. Whoa! But no, Charlie realised the room wasn't growing larger. It was actually him who was shrinking. Smaller and smaller and smaller he shrank, and the room growing ever larger around him. And his body, Charlie hardly dared look. His body was transforming. Whoa! Completely. Extra legs were growing out of him, which is every bit as gross as you can imagine. And finally he felt new eyes emerging out of his head, which possibly even grosser than the new legs. Charlie recognised almost immediately that he was turning into a spider. And how did Charlie know this? He looked at the evidence. Evidence 1. Charlie was now tiny. Admittedly, he hadn't been that huge before he changed, but he could now see a dried apricot under his bed that he'd been saving for a rainy day, and he was now the same size as the apricot. And normal 9-year-old boys usually aren't the same size as dried apricots. Evidence 2. Charlie counted his legs, and he had 8 of them, which is about 6 too many legs for a human, but just the right number for a spider. Look at him, everybody. Look at that very hairy spider. All those eyes. Evidence 3. He was completely covered in short brown hair. Now, being covered in hair didn't necessarily stop someone from being human. Take Charlie's Uncle Pete, for instance. Uncle Pete had taken Charlie swimming once, and when he took off his T-shirt, he had a back so covered in thick tufty hair a gorilla would have been jealous. All the other children had stopped and stared, wide-eyed and jaws agape, as Uncle Pete stepped into the pool, black hair fluttering in the breeze. Charlie had tried to forget this ever happened, but the more he tried to forget Uncle Pete's hairy back, the more it stayed in his brain, because brains are very annoying like that. Evidence 4. Charlie was able to look nearly all the way behind himself now, without even turning round. He reached up with one of his new long spindly legs and carefully counted his eyes. There were 8. 8 legs, 8 eyes, very suspicious. So Charlie looked at all the suspicious evidence and added small plus hairy plus 8 spindly black legs plus 8 eyes together, and you got spider as the answer, because it is a well-known fact that spiders are hairy and have 8 legs and 8 eyes. It is a less known fact that spiders also have 8 bums, which is both disgusting and messy, and also cost spiders loads of money in toilet rolls. Charlie sat on the floor and considered his predicament. He had turned into a spider and he had no idea how to spider. He had lots of practice being a boy, but zero practice spidering. And after a short while, just sitting there being a spider, Charlie came up with a plan. The plan had 2 simple steps. They were step 1, panic, ah! Step 2, shout his mum to come and help. He successfully carried out the first step of his plan. This mostly involved flapping his spindly legs in the air. After he panicked for an inappropriate length of time, Charlie attempted to carry out step 2. Step 2 was unsuccessful. And why was step 2 unsuccessful? Have you ever heard a spider shout? No, of course you haven't, because spiders can't shout. But I'll need to finish there, everybody. It's been great reading to you, and you've been fantastic listeners, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.